project schedule. Developing the project schedule is a critical aspect of the planning process for any project. It allows you to identify resources and constraints, estimate time and effort, identify relationships and dependencies, and indicate milestones. Let's walk through the process together. So the first thing you do is you identify your human resources. Basically, who is available to help? Who's going to be part of this project? Then, what hours and days are they available? What limitations need to be considered for each human resource? Are there strengths or weaknesses that they have? Is there some way that they can help that maybe someone else can't? Then, once you know who you're working with and how you can work with them, well, then you're ready to put your schedule of items, preferably in a software program, a project scheduling software program. There's a variety of programs out there. We're going to use a freeware version called Gantt Project, but it allows you to break your project down in tasks, and we'll take a look at that when we're done walking through the steps. Well, as you're listing your scheduled items, you're going to be cross-referencing with your WBS. That way you make sure that you've addressed everything that's going on. Then you're able to consider the time and effort for each task, and allot for that in the scheduling software. Next, you're going to determine the tasks and their relationships with each other. What needs to be finished before something else can be started, and you can set that all up in the software. Then you're ready to assign human resources based on the time, strengths, availability, etc., for each person. Your textbook calls the schedule review a reality check. And that's when you find out, that person's only available 2 hours and I've just scheduled them for 7 hours of work. Or that you didn't take something into consideration. So I love that they call it a reality check, just to make sure that you've addressed everything. It does give you the opportunity to look at the critical path, so the shortest amount of time you have to be able to complete things. And you can shorten the list or adjust maybe who something is going to be completed by, or combine tasks so that they can be done at the same time. Maybe you're going shopping and you can go to 2 stores instead of 1, instead of 2 separate trips. Things like that. Any possible risks, you're going to address those. So if you were scheduling a home remodel, as an example, you would want to plan to be done a few days early. That way you have some adjustment time if you need to make some changes, and that way you're still able to come in within the deadline. Once you have all of that addressed, you're ready to review one last time, finalize, and you're good to go. Now let's take a look at this process in the software. This is Gantt Project. It's a free version of Microsoft Project. Let's first take a look at how you set it up. And we talked before, you're going to start with resources. You type the name of your resource in. I've just typed Peggy and Maria as our resources. They're throwing the party. And then I'm ready to start putting tasks into my Gantt chart. And I can go do this a variety of ways. I can right click and then add a task, or I can go up to tasks and new task. Either way works. You can immediately type, or if you prefer, you can right click on a task and choose task properties and enter your information from there. So we've got call to invite, and we're going to set the date as January 22nd. It's only a one-day thing. No, wait a minute. We might take a few days to contact everyone. So let's adjust and make that 3 days is good. And who is going to be our person to do this? That will be Peggy. And OK. And now you've assigned the task to somebody specific. And task properties. And as we look back at our work breakdown structure, we see that we want to create a food list. And this time we're going to have Maria do that. And we're going to set a predecessor because we're not going to make our food list until we know who's going to come. So we'll call to invite and say OK. And that way we can see we can't start our food list until we know who's coming. Now you see that I've gone through and entered the rest of the tasks that I have. And I've done some modifications to the list. As an example, I've indented items that are check on guest food. And you can indent or outdent as needed. And that makes them sub-items of checking out food. Well, let's say I want to move this one down and then add it as an indent. That way it adds it to the check guest food area. And I can see that it's in that section. And I decide I don't want my own food in there because I'm not a guest. So I'm going to go ahead and move that out of that section for check guest food. That way I know that it's one of the tasks I need to do, but it's not something that someone else is responsible for. I can also adjust the width of my columns so that they're easier to read. And I can adjust task properties by going back in and changing things as I want. Basically, this is a pictorial view of all the things that need to be done to make the party a success. So you're looking to make sure everything is the way that you want it. Sometimes it requires editing, sometimes it requires moving things around, but it gives you that opportunity. As we get further into the course, there will be Gantt charts for each of the projects that you create. So you'll get comfortable with using this software and with adding and subtracting tasks and dating them. And you'll also get comfortable with predecessors and grouping things under other things that need to be done. And as you move around, in this case, oh wait, Peggy doesn't want to make two shopping trips. She's going to change and do both shopping trips on the same day. And that's the purpose of being able to move things around here so easily. If you have it all on paper, it makes it harder to adjust items. And if you don't do your work breakdown structure ahead of time, you can miss some of the critical steps that are in this process. In week 5, you're going to have the opportunity to explore Gantt project and try one on your own, just using some information that I provide. And then in week 6, you'll be able to start using it as we get into the first individual project. And that will be right here, individual project 1, project definition document, and the overview. And that is planning an interdepartmental meeting is your first project. Let me know if you have questions.